Thank you very much. I have to place this and say that I might have been a little too confident saying yes when my great friend Paul asked me to substitute him here, but I'll try my best. I feel like this man on this picture a little bit. We all know that standing here in front of such an audience and with such a skilled group, well, hard for me, but at the same time, I'm not on that difficult task like this you see here, as the job I have is to try to boil this down to something very similar to Lego blocks, something colorful, easy, and appealable to all age groups. That's what I come for, and therefore I'd say the beauty of the program I'm going to present to you, it's not the complexity, it's the simplicity of it. So I hope you will take it like many others has done, at least in Denmark. The Resilient program, well, it's an open source, it's freeware, and you can go there and there's homework for you. I don't know whether the slides would come out, but else, that's the address. You can go there and you can find good, useful knowledge, old knowledge, new knowledge. The program as a whole is not evidence-based, but all the small Lego blocks within it, they are really well-documented and well-proven knowledge they contain. The research in this program in Denmark, Greenland, UK, Italy, and Greece. It's a new or young program. So, like so many other good things, well, we have to wait a bit to get some results, but we have some, and I'll come back to that in the last part. First, I'll present the program. You can work with it in 3 ways. 1, you can work with it just for inspiration. You go there, you get good ideas, you can use them. Some will use it as an educational program. You can take it from page 1 and you can go through it. And on the website there will be a lot of materials that you can download and you can print and you can use. So you can make it also running as a simple educational program. And then the last and the third, just for taking some of the bricks and use them for problem solving. What we see is that parents, and I think that's one of the very good things about this program, it's so easy accessible and online. So sometimes when we need to work with the context, and we know, and we've seen it just in this presentation just before here, it's so obvious that we need to work with the whole families, and we need to work with teachers, we need to work broadly. And here you have a program where you can invite people to go by themselves, low cost, no cost, and actually gain good knowledge. And we know with a lot of parents, they're coming back just after getting this advice saying, wow, this was helpful. Resilience, the meaning behind it is, of course, to handle life. And sometimes life are not that easy, and that's where you need the resilience. It could be, of course, in social situations, being together with other people, sharing room, sharing life. That's what gives us some of our greatest experience at worst. Tasks and duties. We saw the morning mask here. Just getting out of bed for some is difficult. For some kids, and I've been working a lot with children with ADHD and autism, just starting the day can be difficult. You need a good program for that. Temptations. Most temptations in life we should welcome and say, well, yes, welcome. But some we should refuse. And especially young people need some tools how to do that. And then suffering, of course, an inevitable part of life. Suffering could be so many things, illness, death, but it could also just be this feeling of being different from the rest, feeling isolated, or having some kind of disease or disability, whatever. We need to have tools to work with those groups as well. One of the problems working with diagnosis and in psychiatry as such is that we have to accept the card given. We cannot change the cards. It's just like this wonderful picture or painting that the cards on the table, you have to play with them. You cannot change genetics, you cannot change the life lived, but you can change the game, and you can change the players. And that's what this is for, trying to change the game, trying to address how to become this skilled card player. If you have to play those cards, then how to do that. So we turn to the brain. And the brain is not that easy. Quite a complicated mechanism. So we go again to simplify, looking at just two parts, two functions. We have in the center this part of the brain, very good for multitasking, very fast, but also a bit stubborn. And we have in the other end here, we have the front where we have the thinking. We call it the thinking brain. You might think this is harmful for our good theories and way to present, but it works with normal kids, adults. Well, very fast, sometimes too fast, quite slow, but good for thinking. How to handle thoughts, how to handle the mind, and how to handle explicit learning. We need also a simple model for working with thoughts. So what could be more simple than saying, well, we have green thoughts, we have gray thoughts. Kind simple. Two kinds of thoughts. They're different. Green thoughts, useful thoughts, gray thoughts, useless, or perhaps even harmful. I don't know whether any of you have been working with a person, just, kind of professor in making gray thoughts. They exist, and it can be quite a challenge every day together with such a person. Sometimes people are very good at finding problems, but finding solutions is important. So we have to address those thoughts that brings us the solutions. It might not always be the happy thoughts. It could also be feeling scared, sad, angry. It might be okay in the right time and right doses. But if it's too long, and if the feelings here, emotions get too strong, it might harm. So it's finding the balance. What do we know about that? We know that this kind of thought battles are going on in our heads all the time, every day. You might know this little, very interesting testing. This, we call it rubber or candy or marshmallow. It's the first time it was really used. It was on the west coast of America more than 40 years ago with a marshmallow, placing this in front of the child and saying, well, I have to leave the room for some minutes. When I come back, if it's still there, I give you another one. Wow, that's a challenge. And if you haven't seen this little film, go and look how they are having these mind battles, trying to resist eating this one. The most interesting part is how they do it. And another very interesting part is, of course, that if following those kind of children for many years, and that has been done, they've been followed for more than 40 years, and we can see that the outcome in life is very much dependent on how they manage this kind of test. Actually more dependent on this than on school marks. How can that be? How can such a simple thing tell such an important give such an important message about outcome in life? It's because this is about being the boss in the brain. Those kids who can win their thought fightings, they will do better than those who come to, well, short there. So fighting to keep track of useful thoughts, being aware of useful thoughts, and being able to keep them and keep focusing on the useful thoughts. That's very important. We know all this situation, you're driving your car, and there's a ear hanger, I don't know what you call it, something really grabbing you, music playing in the radio. And then it stops in the radio, but it keeps on in your head for 10 minutes, for half an hour, for 2 hours. Not a big problem. But next morning, when you wake up, there's still the same music playing in your head. Well, that's not good. But how more problematic if it's a really depressive thought or something that keeps playing in your head all the time? How to handle that? And we know that one of the most effective ways to handle depressions or depressive thoughts is to fight them, to bring in useful thoughts, just for moments to start, and then keeping them for longer. That's quite effective. Of course, we have in a more academic language a lot of words for this: mentalization-based training, self-efficacy, coping, real life skills, resilience, attention training. But in our little simple program, it's brain aerobics. And we try to train that. But we use something more, because sometimes people will address, who's thinking? What's about thinking? And we just say, well, think about it. I think we all know that we have thoughts, and we can address that. And one of the ways to address it is looking at it with like this, a torch, saying, well, your attention. Well, perhaps it could be just like looking at this. We all have what we call an eye. We don't go very deep into this, but just saying, you are the light operator. You are the light manager. You could look at the world outside, all these people. You can look at yourself, you can touch yourself, but you can also address your attention to what's inside. You can all do that. Are you hungry? Well, how do you feel? Are you sitting comfortable? Whatever. You can address it, and you can address your thinking. And we, of course, try to help the students to do that and give them tools to do that. So the eye is the internal observer. This invisible light, the attention, and you get the possibility to look, and many will do that, but to address what is going on inside you is so extremely important. And that's why this program is working so well for many, many groups, not only depressive or social anxiety, also ADHD, and actually also autism. So, the light manager. But sometimes a telephone rings. Well, and the attention is grabbed by something outside. Yeah. Well, then you have to get it back. For some students, it's quite difficult. It's like the outside world is taking charge of your attention. That can be a problem. It's a problem if the outside world or something there is ruling you, or your thoughts. So let's look a little closer again, back to what's inside this brain. We have what we will address in this program as an alarm central, an alarm center, a 112 here mechanism down there. It's a nice word, 112. It works with many of my kids when I'm working with them. Alarm center also, quite good. We have another part of the brain, as mentioned before. We call it just the thinking brain. And we just look at those two, the alarm center, the thinking brain. And then sometimes we have this hazard flashing in the alarm center. And what is happening is when you come to such a situation that might threat you, you might feel insecure or whatever. What is so important to know for many of our kids and also the grown-ups is that when the hazard flashing is there, when the alarm center is really working, fast and effective, the thinking brain, slow, is not really in. It's cut off. Because you have to be fast when you're really challenged. And therefore you don't have time for go here, minding your mind. So how to avoid that? We can see a situation here. I'll just show you a short one. Could we, oh, I hope we could activate this one. It used to work like this. How does it work?
Hey, you guys. Yeah, come on.
Good intention. But the outcome,
I'm gonna request more.
I guess there's some hazard flashing there. And we all know the situation. You come out to the kitchen, you do something, you address this weak point in your wife or husband, and it starts. The thinking brain is not really with us, and we are just emotional states, quarreling, shouting. So sometimes we need tools to come back to the thinking brain whenever we end up in situations like this. Of course, this starts very early in life. And we saw that on those wonderful clips just before, how children come into a situation where they're real danger. And what it's all about, raising a child, or not what it's all about, but what is so important, is to make sure that they get just the right, appropriate challenges. That they don't get too much, they don't get too less. If you end up in a situation where whenever you are frightened, everyone around you is shouting and howling, then you're just being reassured that this is dangerous, extremely dangerous. And for some of those kids and those families, of course, it is dangerous. So what is the right thing to do, and we saw it on the film, is comforting the child and saying, okay, you're upset, but the situation is not that dangerous. At the same time, we have in Denmark quite a lot of parents, kind of what we call curling parents. They're taking every obstacle away for their child to make life easier. But they don't make child resistant to life when it's difficult. Resilience is not what you get by not meeting challenges in life. So our program is very much about having ideas how to cuddle, how to help, how to address when you are in the alarm state of your mind, and how to address the thinking brain, how to address the gray, how to address the green thoughts, and how to praise in the right way, trying to tell children that it's not about winning every time, like this boy is doing to his little sister here. It's not about winning every time, but I'm so proud of you because you're trying again and again, just like the little one here trying to walk. What makes it so fantastic to see such a one is they're trying again and again, and they fall over and they're starting again. Resilience is not about winning. It's about continuing and coming up again once more that you fall. We have good stories to use in this program, and I'll read one. I have time for that. And this is one we call the House of Thoughts. There are many to get there, but this is one of them, and we are still making new ones. I read. In a way, we could say that our thoughts live inside our heads. Imagine that your thoughts live in a house with many rooms where you can wander around and explore. When you discover thoughts, you're using the world's finest tool, your attention. This is a kind of spotlight. When you throw light on a thought, you spot it and discover it. Thereafter, you can shift your attention and discover another thought. The House of Thoughts has plenty of rooms. A number of exciting thoughts may live in one room. Perhaps some sad and angry thoughts live in another room, and various happy thoughts live in a third room. From the house of thoughts, your thoughts can call you if they want to be discovered. This may be really exciting and good, but it could also be irritating, especially if the thoughts are annoying and they keep knocking all the time, trying to take charge over your attention. I should not take it all. But small stories like this, we invite students to read them for each other. We use them as tasks, as also an invitation to talk about how is your room of thoughts? Which kind of rooms do you like to address? Which kind of rooms would you like to avoid? And how to walk around in a peaceful way in your house. I use it even with my grandchildren when they have to go to sleep. Invite them to go into a nice room just before falling to sleep. But actually, we very often can get good invitation to talk about different things, because as soon as we can get them into one room and isolate them there and go out again and close the door and go to another room. Also this having a diagnosis that is quite difficult sometimes to talk about. Well, that's one room in the house. Another one could be the mind party, where we have a lot of guests coming into our thinking party or thought party, and sometimes some very uninvited black guests show up. How to address them? You can look at it. The mind train, how to handle that. That you sometimes a thought is just driving with a speed that is extremely fast. Some of our ADHD boys have that, girls. The boss of the brain, we have a lot of exercises. This is a practical tool. Well, how do you end up in this emergency brain? And how do you come back? Can you go back yourself, or do you need any kind of help to come back? What could help you? Is there any steps on the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you could be more careful to observe and know about? And would there be some very important steps on the way back that you need to know more about? How can we address that? And working with children, of course, I think he's the world champion, this little guy, in coming from a thinking brain to the emergency brain. Have you seen Donald Duck? I guess so. It takes like this. Yardsticks, working with the children, saying, or also young people and adults for that sake, which kind of tools will help you and how good do they work with you? So many different. I won't run through them all because time is running, but in a school setting, working with children, working with young people, working with children out of school, we do it on university level. Also, it's the same kind of tools, but in a different shape. Actually, the thinking behind it, make it simple, make it accessible for everyone, make it an open source, invite people to go there. And then, of course, fail again, but fail better. We have a garbage bin for bad excuses, and we have a shrine for failures. We really celebrate failure sometimes, because trying again and again and again, that's what it's all about. But trying, of course, not doing the same failure all the time, do it better. But okay with failures. Bullying and so on, you can read about it. I hope that you are a little bit curious. How to ease the alarm center, we also have a lot of good ideas in the material about breathing. That's always something you have with it. You can actually fool the stupid part of the brain here by breathing, because, well, when your respiration is okay, it thinks, well, everything is okay. Food, diet, exercise, noise, preventing noise, sleep, rest, it's all there. This is the overview of the program. What is resilience? The brain, stories, body, breathing, taking, exercise, mind games, resilient communities, problem solving, harmful thoughts, useful thoughts, small careful steps, personal realistic goal setting, and of course, thinking brain and emergency. And then, is there any documentation behind this? Well, starting the program, it started just as a municipality program in an area with a lot of, well, ethnic groups and severe problems. And it was introduced there as this a brief program, not taking much time. And what I think is the most interesting part of this is coming back 3 years later. They're still using it. It's still working. That's, I think, when we look at implementation, a very important part of a program. Sometimes we say, well, the most effective program is the one with the highest evidence. I would say the most effective program is the one being used. And this is being used from day one and also 3 years later. But evidence should be there as well. Therefore, we started with that. At the moment, this year's, we have 4 programs running, and we have 4 quite good slots for that. So we have in Denmark several studies, and you taking all the results up here will be difficult, and perhaps take away the spotlight from what it is here, simplicity. But you can go to this homepage, webpage, myresilience.org, and you can find all the documentation there, and you can find, of course, descriptions more carefully than what I've been able to give here with the time. And then there are pipeline, and the pipeline is not with the big slots behind, but it's still quite interesting that this has been taken up by University of Copenhagen, Catholic University of Milan, schools for and offers for young people with autism. And again, it's working. Why can it work there? You said, well, we started with Baron Cohen and Theory of Mind and Uta Fritz and all this, Leslie. Because when mentalization is kind of a breakdown, or at least not a breakthrough very early, we have sometimes to be awake and know that in developmental disorders like autism, for example, when the thinking brain is in place, you could say that fully developed, then you might be able to address some of all those things about social and mentalization. And that's also why they have revised this theory of mind thing to say, well, this is a delay. They're not being fast runners when it comes to mentalization. They will be in the slow track, but it's such a big failure thinking that we cannot work with this because it's not there from the very start as something that is just inborn. We have to work with it, and it works. So that's what we're also very interested in. So, well, I'll stop there. I just have to say one thing, and that's that the mastermind behind this is Mr. Paul Bach. So thank you to him, and thank you to you.